public interest groups, the two most important of which are represented at this table, CDT and Public Knowledge. And the result of it was an outcome that reflected consensus in that multi-stakeholder process. It didn't please everyone, but it did, however, reflect industry norms. And I am willing to submit that there are few, if any, business plans that have been seriously affected by the Open Internet Order. And for that reason, I am optimistic that the DC Circuit's invalidation of major portions of that order will not actually affect broadband behavior, in part because the order was already a codification of existing norms to begin with. Now, some people look at these developments in a pejorative light. They view them as a form of industry capture, regulatory capture. They ask why the FCC can't just figure out what the right answer is and then impose it in the public interest. And the answer is that in many contexts, particularly very complex technological contexts where the underlying economics are changing rapidly, multi-stakeholder processes are more effective in producing optimal outcomes. But at the same time, there are also some contexts where those multi-stakeholder processes wouldn't take place at all if the government didn't step in to say, we're going to impose enforceable rules. You guys figure out what those rules should be, and then we're going to codify them. The FCC, in this context, the FCC's role was valuable for two reasons. Three reasons. It brought everyone to the table. B, it forced everyone who was at the table to think in enlightened terms about what sorts of regimes would be credible as a governance structure. And third, it reinforced the norms that the multi-stakeholder community itself had come up with and established an enforcement mechanism for them. So I'm just going to conclude by saying that this is not a panacea. This is not to say that the outcomes of multi-stakeholder processes are perfect, that they always serve consumers as best as they could, and that's the ultimate inquiry. But it is often better than the alternative, which is either no government-led process at all, or instead government top-down mandates. And in the international context, I think we're seeing something similar. Danny said something that I thought was very instructive, which is that the reason that today's internet multi-stakeholder governance bodies have legitimacy is that they've made it work. And the same is true of the process that I've described. When the FCC or the FTC brings parties together in its role as a convener, the